All right, good afternoon. It is Thursday, and we're back. My guy, Jared, what's going on today, my guy? How you doing, Jared? Can you hear me? Did he freeze out? Uh-oh. Right when we go live, we lose it. All right, let's pause here for a second. Let's see if we can run it back here. Jared. Huh. All right, we're gonna rerun this, guys. I want to give you guys all the answers to your questions. My guy, PPR Fantasy Tips, Jared here. Are you here?
Dude, technical difficulties are going out. Hopefully that does not continue. I'm on vacation, so the Wi-Fi is not the typical setup. Apologies.
Oh my man, I was looking at well, this is fantasy. This is what it's all about. All right, let's run it back right here from the top. So we got our guy PPR Fantasy Tips. Everybody here knows what Jared has done all season, all off season, and we're at the most important weeks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we did this last week. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. I want to do it again with you. I know you said you're on vacation, you're not at home, but you're still doing this. This is for the love of the people. So first, obviously, everyone can find you at PPR Fantasy Tips. Anything else that people should know specifically about when your content or specific pieces to check out?
I mean, for me, I'm pretty straightforward. Just, find me on Twitter, PPR Fantasy Tips. I know I've been getting a lot of questions today, this weekend. It's an important week. You got, playoffs, people maybe in a championship or trying to get into the championship. I am trying to reply back, but, I can't literally be on my phone all day. But, wanted to come on here, try and, crank through as many as we can, try and help some people out and, have some fun.
So we're going to do all of that right now. Crank it out, have some fun, hopefully stay connected. And so there's a couple posts out there on X from you, from me, where we've, taken some questions. So I'm going to run through some of them. And then also we'll take some live questions. If you're listening, watching, make sure you subscribe and ask your questions in the replies. Let's start on your post, Jared, that you put up about having the answers and all this for this week specifically. And we'll take these questions, and I'm just going to read them right from the top here. Here's what we got. First question. QB, who you starting? Jordan Love or Matthew Stafford?
Oh, man. So for me, I do typically think Jordan Love is the safer play, but I think the Packers are going to absolutely kill in their matchup this week. So I think his upside might be limited. He's going to have to put up a lot of points early, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a Josh Jacobs week and a lot of running. So for me, I'm going to lean towards Stafford. I think that game's going to be a shootout. And, last week, a little bit of a, I guess, upsetting week, screwed me in a lot of weeks. I'm sure Cooper Kupp screwed a lot of other people, but I see a bounce back coming. I'm not really worried about it. So I'd go Stafford there.
All right, there we go, Matthew Stafford. I think you had good reasoning there. John also asked, pick 2 for flex. We have choices of Joe Mixon, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kenneth Walker III, Adam Thielen, Jalen McMillan. Any preferences?
Well, so, Kenneth Walker, that one's hard to really give a response to because we don't really even know if he's going to play.
Right, he hasn't played for weeks.
Yeah, he's going to be a very sketchy start if he does end up playing, in my opinion. A lot of people, if you have him, you may end up having to start him because he is a star running back. One of the guys you said was Joe Mixon. I'm assuming he is going to be active. I'm starting him. Automatic start if you have Joe Mixon, unless you're in like a small league where you have a ton of superstar running backs to choose from. And then you said McMillan, you said Adam Thielen, and
Marvin Harrison Jr.
For me, I think it's really between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Adam Thielen. McMillan, in a deep league, if you need a flex and you don't have other options, I guess go for it and pray for another touchdown. He's been on a little bit of a hot streak. But for me, I'm probably leaning Adam Thielen. I think he's the safest floor. I think he's got a decent ceiling. I think he's the automatic wide receiver 1 in Carolina, and they are going to throw the ball, in my opinion. So, I'm leaning Adam Thielen. Even with the good matchup that Marvin Harrison Jr. has, it's just hard for me to trust him. He's been so up and down all year. I'm just at this point in the playoffs. I'm going with kind of sticking with my guys. I'm not trying to get super risky in these situations.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice as everyone's coming down to the wire here to think about who they're starting, what they're doing. I really like what you said there. Let's take a question now from one of the live views. Daniel asked, fill in for Guerendo, who we find out today. Guerendo's out, another 49ers running back out. So in the flex, who would you choose here out of these three? DK Metcalf, Jalen McMillan, or Calvin Ridley?
So McMillan is out for me out of the two of those guys. The Ridley and DK have the superior talent, in my opinion. I actually think that this one's actually a little bit risky, but I think I lean Ridley here. Mason Rudolph has seemed to do a good job whenever he started at distributing the ball. Calvin Ridley's their wide receiver 1. Tennessee's going to have to throw the ball. They're a bad offense in general. Tony Pollard's hurt. I'd be very shocked if Calvin Ridley doesn't see pretty solid volume. And DK's been kind of on a slump. You got Geno injured, JSN taking over that wide receiver room. DK could go off, but I think I lean Ridley. I think he's got the best chance.
I like that. And I mean, hey, he's got a new quarterback now starting, so that he could get that new quarterback boost who's going to be looking for his star receiver if he knows, what's good for him at the quarterback position with Mason Rudolph. Oh, yeah. So something to pay attention to. Let's another question here as far as at tight end, and this is one that I've seen a lot. Who would you choose between Hawkinson for Minnesota or Travis Kelce for KC, especially thinking about Patrick Mahomes injured, but it looks like will play? Does that affect your thought process?
I mean, Patrick Mahomes starting or not starting, typically, yes, that affects my thought process, but at the same time, it's not like Travis Kelce's been the Travis Kelce that we've all been used to, where he's just out here getting peppered with targets and absolutely balling every week. He's been a little bit up and down. We're talking about TJ Hawkinson, who I think is probably I guess a weird way to say it, I feel like he's like the safer 10 points. But I think Kelce has more upside. And I personally would end up going Travis Kelce just because I think if Carson Wentz is starting, he's going to lean on Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's an absolute beast. He's going to be a safety blanket for Carson Wentz on some short routes. I'm not benching the GOAT in that kind of a situation, even though TJ Hawkinson is a great additional option. I just think that Vikings offense is so stacked with options that Hawkinson kind of gets left out sometimes.
Yeah, let's continue on this thing. We're on the tight end talk. Here's another tight end question from Sam, who's watching live. Appreciate you, Sam. Talks about Mark Andrews, Brenton Strange, big kind of waiver addition this week. A lot of upside, maybe, but it is a dart throw. Hunter Henry at tight end. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah. Strange didn't sprain. That
looks like a little bit of technical difficulties here on hearing Jared. Give us a second. I think you're back now. Let's continue.
Oh, sorry about that.
You're okay.
Basically, I like Strange. I'm a little bit worried about the AC joint sprain that he picked up last week. He got peppered with targets. I think he's going to be the clear second, target for Mac Jones in that offense. There we go. Is it back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, good. Sorry. My Wi-Fi keeps spinning on me over here.
Hey, it's like your opponent is trying to get against you.
Man, it's unbelievable. I think Strange is the upside play. I think Mark Andrews is the safe play. Hunter Henry, I don't mind him, but I just like Strange and Andrews more. If you're looking for upside, I would go Strange. And if you're just looking for a safe play where you don't want as much risk, I think I would go Mark Andrews. Just, that Ravens offense is amazing.
Right. One more when we think about Strange. What about Strange versus Laporta? Who are you starting?
That one's tough. I think I lean Laporta there just because Strange is injured. You've got David Montgomery dealing with injuries in Detroit. I just have a feeling they're not going to want to put the full weight of the entire game on Jahmyr Gibbs, although I do expect him to get plenty of volume and have an incredible game, very likely a top.
Oh, we lost it here. What would it be? A top? What do you guys think? We could play a game here when we lose Jared. What we think the finishing point of the statement was. Where would he finish top what? You can put that in the comments. Now, look, guys, if you're watching, we've got 200 plus live viewers. Make sure to comment your question you want to hear from, not just Jared, but myself. Try to help you win your week 16. All right, Jared, you're good. Keep it back. You left us with a cliffhanger here, okay? You said he's in your top, and then I was going to play a game. What is the finish there? So keep it going.
Yeah, man, I'm really making you scramble on this one. The Wi-Fi goes out every like 30 seconds. No, but I'm going Laporta there. I think that he.
Jared was going to tell you that he thinks that Laporta's season this long and his history from his rookie season, freshman year in the NFL was good, that he's going with the standard guy that you would rely more on based on Laporta coming alive more so in the second half this season. I don't actually know if that's what Jared would say, but that's what I'm saying for Jared as we lost him. Well, these technical difficulties continue. It's okay, Jared. Look, this is kind of like a Mad Libs level of live version, but that's okay. We're still rolling here. Don't worry about it. Let's continue here to just close up. Who's at the top of your tight end board?
Okay. Top of my tight end board, definitely, Brock Bowers. That's kind of obvious, but I'm sure people were a little bit worried about him after the past couple of weeks. With Aiden O'Connell coming back, I'm expecting him to ball out and kind of be the guy that he typically is. I'm also really high on Trey McBride. Kyler Murray's made comments about trying to get him a touchdown. I think this week is going to be that week. So if you're against him, I'm sorry. I think he might have one of his best weeks of the entire season, especially with that soft matchup. Jonnu Smith, also another guy that I like a lot. Jalen Waddle is dealing with an injury. Surprise. I know you guys didn't expect that, but Jonnu's going to get fed. If Jalen Waddle is out, Jonnu is a top 5 tight end in my book. And then let's see, maybe someone that's a little bit further down. I'd probably say, Brenton Strange. I know he's been in a lot of the questions. I think Pat Freiermuth as well. If you're desperate, I think with George Pickens out, I think Freiermuth is a safe 10 points. And I think Strange, if he can get past that shoulder injury, that he's got some pretty good upside and could see, us targets on the week, which in the tight end world, all I want to see is volume for these guys and then hope, fingers crossed that they produce for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Let's continue because there's so many questions. I want to try to dive through as many, especially when we've got you. Tyler asked Patrick Taylor, obviously now starting in San Francisco. I mean, we talked about Garendo's out. Would you start Patrick Taylor over a guy like Tyrone Tracy and another guy like DeAndre Swift?
So DeAndre Swift, I'm out on this week. I think he's going to be a bad start. They've got a really tough matchup. I think they're going to, I think the Bears are going to be losing. I love the wide receivers in that game, but I'm out on DeAndre Swift. I think Taylor or Tyrone Tracy. Honestly, I kind of go back and forth. I think Tyrone Tracy has been the safe start out of, if you were to pick between those two, you would have maybe gone Tyrone Tracy, but with Singletary coming back into the fold and getting a little bit more involved in that offense, it's got me a little bit worried about Tyrone Tracy, especially since he's in a bad offense and they have a bad matchup this week. So I think I would actually lean Taylor, risk it on the 3rd string running back or whatever it is, 4th string running back, 5th string running back.
I think it's 5th.
Running backs tend to ball on that offense. It doesn't really seem to matter who it is. And he has looked decent when he's touched the ball in the minimal times that he's had it. So I think I would just roll, especially if you need some points and maybe you're projected to lose or you're feeling a little bit more risky. I would roll Taylor out and just let him rock it on that offense.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, it's obviously risky, and this has been a risky fantasy season overall, but you make great points when you think about San Francisco, the running game. We've seen numerous running backs for the entire Kyle Shanahan era thrive in that offense. And people sort of forget. I mean, Raheem Mostert was thriving in San Francisco years and years ago in his limited, So let's continue, though. We've got a wide receiver question here. This is on the periphery sort of wide receivers. Cedric Tillman appears to be back, I think, this week from his concussion, which extended a few weeks there. Would you play Cedric Tillman or would you play Rome Odunze?
I'm going to go Rome Odunze there. For the simple reason that I think the Bears are going to be playing from behind and they're going to have to chuck the ball. I do think he's the wide receiver 3 on that offense, but as we've seen previously, he will occasionally be the guy that's catching the touchdowns and getting the volume. I personally think DJ Moore and Keenan Allen are going to be the, clear lead wide receivers and targets this week. But I mean, out of the 2 of those guys, I think I'm definitely going Rome.
Yeah. I like it. It's hard to try. I mean, it's really hard now to think what's the passing game in Cleveland going to look like now, especially they've moved off of Jameis again. Doesn't mean we won't see Jameis this week because who knows what's going on in Cleveland. But DTR is going to get the run here, and hard to understand how he's going to look as a passer. Will he be able to carry even one guy like a Judy? But then you add the guys like Njoku and then Ken Tillman. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens in Cleveland. I was much more excited about Tillman before the injury even, and now I'm very concerned. So I like the idea of Odunze. Does seem like there's a little bit more upside. Let's take a minute here to thank everyone. We've got 260 of you watching live across the different platforms, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, on X. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you are following not just myself, but obviously Jared, which many of you already are. If you're not, make sure you are at PPR Fantasy Tips. Questions kind of coming through here now. We'll just take them right from the live chat as we see them. And here we are. Clark asks 1 point PPR flex start. Breece Hall is included here. Pacheco, Brian Robinson. So where are you going here?
Now this one's a tough one. For me, you're going to notice a trend. McMillan is not an option for me if there's other decent players on there. Pacheco, I'm going to go ahead and rule him out. He's been kind of splitting touches with Kareem Hunt. You might have Patrick Mahomes out. It's just a kind of a sketchy situation, in my opinion. Although previous to the injury, I loved Pacheco. For me, this one really comes down to I'm going to go with DK Metcalf or Breece Hall. I'm going to take B-Rob out just because they're against that Eagles offense, and I can see the Eagles taking a lead and Washington really having to lean on Jaden Daniels. So between Breece Hall and Metcalf, I think I end up going Metcalf because this is a PPR league, and specifically because Breece Hall has been banged up. I think that knee injury is really affecting him more than what the team is wanting to let on. But I think it's pretty clear that Breece Hall is a superstar running back. There's no reason he shouldn't be absolutely crushing it for you in your fantasy lineup. So the only conclusion I have is that the guy is way more banged up than they're letting on. And, I know DK Metcalf hasn't been super exciting, but he's a star wide receiver. He's gonna make some plays, and hopefully this week he's able to, catch a touchdown, make the big play rather than JSN kind of taking over the entire pie.
Yeah. All right, let's continue here. Shout out to Clark for the question. Appreciate you guys. Brandon talks about scraping the bottom of the barrel. You just said, we had a conversation on Tillman, but let's add in Downs, Mooney, Coleman. Where are we scraping from?
Yeah, we are definitely scraping the bottom of the barrel. And I hate to say that about our guy, Darnell Mooney, because he's been balling all year. I think for me, this one comes down to Mooney or Downs. Tillman, you laid out some really good reasoning for why, the whole Browns receiver group is kind of sketchy. There's just no telling how that quarterback situation is going to affect the wide receivers, especially with Tillman coming off missing multiple games with the bad condition. Keon Coleman, he could do well, but the Bills wide receivers has been pretty unpredictable outside of Khalil Shakir. He's really the only one I feel super comfortable starting. I think I would end up going with Mooney here, actually. There hasn't been many times where I've wanted to risk it in the playoffs on a rookie quarterback, but he is, he's talked up to be, great arm talent. I do assume that they're going to be throwing the ball a decent amount. I don't expect them to take a big lead or anything like that. I think it'll be somewhat close unless Bijan Robinson just goes absolutely ape and, just absolutely takes over the entire game and just scores a bunch of touchdowns. And then it just turns into a Bijan Robinson and Algier game. Downs is just hard to trust with Anthony Richardson. Yeah, I think I go Mooney. He's been balling all year, and I'm just going to hope that the rookie's able to get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we're answering these questions, especially you, and you think about these situations are completely fresh, right? Now we have Michael Penix, where we can speculate and, you look good in preseason or in practice, but we don't have a lot to go off of. But, look, Mooney balled out a lot this season. He's been a hell of a surprise. And I think there's a chance, as you said, with the rookie that it could look good. So good luck to you, Brandon, this weekend. Thanks for the question. How about a quarterback, Jared? Would you start Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson? I'm going to run that back just to make sure you heard. So, Jared, would you start at quarterback Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson?
Oh man, I that one's tough because I really don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to end up playing. If he's playing, I'm going Patrick Mahomes. Okay. I do not trust starting Russell Wilson without George Pickens.
Yeah, and George Pickens has already been ruled out. We saw it. It just doesn't look good without. It does look like Russell Wilson is not a product of George Pickens, but he needs George Pickens. I thought this immediately, as watching the games for sure. And you say it yourself. You don't think Mahomes is playing. It does say the latest that he is going to play. We know these can, we can go back and forth. I'd say the most important thing, monitor the news before the game to see is he active or not. We'll know if he is, as it comes, but it does appear he might actually play. Let's take a question from Wayne, who's in here, and it's a defensive question. Are you starting the Broncos or the Colts? Now, just to be clear, the Broncos this week are playing at the Chargers, which is tonight, obviously, and then the Colts are matched up this week with the Titans and Mason Rudolph. To be honest, in my opinion, I would prefer facing the Titans with Will Levis at quarterback. That's my own thing.
Yeah, I think Mason Rudolph being added as the quarterback kind of pushes me away from wanting to start the Colts defense. I think Mason Rudolph is going to be able to put up more yards than Will Levis has. I know that sounds kind of crazy since he's just, kind of a random name within all the backups of the NFL, but I thought Levis was sketchy all season. I think in this situation, I'm starting, start your studs. I'm going Denver Broncos. They're, the best. I believe they're the number one ranked defense in fantasy football. I'm lining them up. They've got, Justin Herbert, who's a good quarterback, Ladd McConkey, who's been a good wide receiver, but, without J.K. Dobbins, that offense has looked a little bit lackluster. They're kind of having trouble moving the ball as efficiently as they were when J.K. Dobbins was there providing them that boost. So I think I'm going to lean on the Broncos and just start my stud.
There you go. You heard it there first. I'm exactly with Jared, Wayne. You got to start. I mean, the Broncos are number one all season. Don't ride away from them this way. This week, ride with them. Okay, for the question. Let's go to another one from Zika Beek. Cooper Kupp or BTJ this week? I mean, look, Cooper can't do worse than he did last week, but BTJ is coming on. So what do we think?
Geez, Zeke, I feel like you're trolling me on this question because last week I started Cooper. Everyone starts Cooper Kupp and he screwed everybody in the playoffs. Now I'm playing for third place in a bunch of leagues, and it's really annoying. BTJ, for those that follow me, you may have seen that I said I would consider benching BTJ, and then he put up like 30 points. So that was really wonderful for me to watch that. So between these two guys, I really don't think you can go wrong. I don't see Cooper Kupp having a bad game this week. He's one of the best wide receivers in the league, and the weather seemed to really affect him and the Rams offense last week. I think if you are going for sheer upside, I do think I lean BTJ. Reason being, I am more confident in him getting huge volume because I do see, Puka Nacua is clearly the wide receiver one for the LA Rams at this point. And I just think BTJ has a better chance of just getting absolutely peppered with tons of targets. And, last week I thought the Jets would focus on shutting him down. And, BTJ is just too good to shut down. He's going to get open. It's just a matter of, is Mac Jones going to put the ball in his hand? So I think I lean BTJ there surprisingly because I'm a huge Cooper Kupp fan.
I am too, and he's highly disappointing with what happened last week because I needed 4 points and I
Oh,
got 0 from Cooper, so I am
oh,
not in the finals.
oh.
I would have thought I could have gotten 4 points in a PPR league, but I got a 0. Anyways, this is fantasy and this is how we roll. It keeps it real, right? So, anyways, but I do think, just to be clear, long term, I think immediately as far as next season, I will have BTJ above Cooper because what we've seen from BTJ this year, especially down the stretch, is he is an elite type of receiver upside wise. And I think he has a chance to be a real true number one type of guy for you.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah. Let's keep it rolling here. We got lots of questions coming in. Appreciate everyone. Finkel, what QB do I start for passing, 4-point passing touchdowns? We've kind of touched on this, Love and Stafford, but throw in Knicks because we didn't, where do you see Knicks?
Man, you got 4 quarterbacks on there that, I think Love, I'm counting Love out. I think that game's going to go run heavy. Man, I think I am between going Bo Nix or Matt Stafford. I know Aaron Rodgers has, I kind of see the 3 of them as almost equal this week. I think the safest play is going Bo Nix simply because he's been the most consistent all season. He balled out on the Chargers last game. I don't remember exactly, but he put up like 21 points or something like that. Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to throw the rock, but it's hard to trust that Jets offense to stay consistent. And then Stafford, I do love Stafford. Honestly, maybe I'm just a little bit bitter from last week, but I think I'm going Bo Nix.
Yeah, that works for me because you've made your points about Love, and this is a tough one anyways. Let's continue. We got one more here in the chat asking about B-Rob, Tracy, or Kendre Miller. I mean, it looks like Kamara's probably done for the season now. Kendre Miller comes into play, could be huge, but what is your take on Kendre Miller in general? I mean, is he a starter-worthy guy?
I mean, I think Kendre Miller, it's really going to come down to the volume that he gets. He definitely makes me nervous just because there's so many injuries on that offense that I just expect them to get absolutely clobbered, and I don't expect them to be running the ball much. What could happen, because I believe Kendre Miller is a pretty solid pass catcher, they could end up throwing him, 5, 6, 7 targets, and maybe he breaks one off. But in general, I don't know that I would want to rely on that offense. I would much rather go with a guy like Brian Robinson Jr. in that situation. Let him see if he can carry one into the end zone like he did in the last game against the Eagles. It is a tough matchup, but that offense is clearly the best offense out of the 3 offenses that you have a choice of there. So I'm going to lean with B-Rob just simply because I think he's got the best chance at getting in the end zone.
All right, I love that. The studio changed up for a second too as you were answering it. We got all sorts of.
You're giving me my moment in the sun, baby.
Yeah, exactly. I was playing around with some production level. Hey, let's take a minute here. We're a half hour in. It's 2:30 Pacific, 3:30 Mountain. Now we're up to over 400 people that are tuned in across everything. Got questions from YouTube, from X. Appreciate everyone. Anything before we continue to Quincy's question, Jared, that you want to share to make sure people see your content coming out after today or the rest of the week, season? I just want to give you another chance here as we have some new viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Find me on Twitter, PPR Fantasy Tips. Right now, pretty straightforward. That's the only place you can find me. I do post content every day, try to post 1 to 2 times a day at least. I do attempt to reply back to the majority of the comments. It's gotten a little bit rough with the volume that's been coming in. So if you do want, and I know some people don't like it, and it is what it is. You don't have to like it, but when it's taken hours and hours to respond back to everybody, I do have to try and make a little bit of money off it. So I do accept tips.
Time out, please. Don't say you're sorry. Don't be concerned about you have to try. You have put in the amount of time and effort, and to reply to people, your time is not free and valuable, even though you've given a lot of it. So just so you know, I think I support not just you looking to earn from giving your advice, but also don't feel, this is something where I think people should be willing to come to you to give this. And I want to support you as you continue here.
Hey, I appreciate that. I've got a kind heart, and I hate when, I get messages backwards. Like I don't have the extra dollars. And I'm like, damn, I don't want to be that guy that's like, well, I'm not helping you then. But unfortunately, you know, I'm trying to reply back to hundreds of people, and it's just like, if you want guaranteed answers,
you can't do it 24/7 as it's freezing for Jared. I'll just speak on his behalf in the sense that look, there's only so much time we all have, and the questions are coming. When you have the amount of followers that Jared has and the amount of incoming messages, I felt this at the start of this season when I offered answers. It comes to the point where you can't get through everything in time. So don't take it as trying to get some tips, some extra money, which helps any individual as anything other than it's just part of what needs to be done to make sure you can continue to do this successfully. Continue.
yeah, no, but at the end of the day, you know, I made this page because I wanted to reply to people. I actually saw that there were pages that have 100,000 followers and they're not replying back to any of the people that are asking them questions. And I thought, you know, that's kind of silly. Why do you have a fantasy page and you're asking people to ask you questions, but then you don't actually reply back to questions? So I do really enjoy doing it, but you know, at a certain point, you know, my girlfriend's going to break up with me if I stay on my phone for too much longer than I already do. And I don't want her to do that. So, you know, I appreciate everybody that follows my page. I'm going to always try and reply. I'm going to always try and help, but just wanted to say that because I do feel bad when, you know, folks get upset about it and things of that nature. And
Yeah,
good to put a name as well. See me on video.
Don't get upset about this. I mean, in general, people, we're trying our best here. Jared has so much time, so much. He doesn't have so much time, but he puts out so much content. You would think he has this time, but the amount of incoming questions, it's impossible for any human being to do it. And you won't, you start to understand it once you do that. Anyways, let's continue here. We got this question from Quincy. Appreciate you coming over from YouTube, Quincy. Need 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Obviously, we've talked some of these names. I'm not going to mention McMillan. We know where we stand there. Guerendo is out. He's not a candidate. So we have Debo, Jennings, Thielen, Waddle, Charbonnet.
Okay, yeah, this was a fun one. I think for me, the 2 wide receivers that stand out that are like auto starts out of this group is Juwan Jennings as well as Adam Thielen. Those guys are starts for me. Debo, I wish I could say, is a confident start. The guy hasn't put up 10 fantasy points in weeks. It is the saddest thing I've ever watched. He'll probably go off now that I said that, but I can't trust him in a playoff situation, especially when you have Jennings as well already starting. For you, what I would hope is that Kenneth Walker is ruled out. I don't like to wish injuries on anybody, but for Quincy, it seems like if Charbonnet, which has his own injury as well, if he ends up active and Kenneth Walker ends up out, he would be my flex play. If Kenneth Walker is active, or any situation where basically Charbonnet is not the lead running back, my next person I would be moving on to would be Waddle. He's also dealing with an injury, so you're going to have to monitor that, see what the deal is. If Charbonnet and Waddle are both not good options because Kenneth Walker is starting or whatever happens with that backfield, Waddle's ruled out. My next pick is the only person left, or like McMillan or Debo. I'm going McMillan. He's been on a hot streak. He's catching touchdowns. I'd rather take a shot on him than praying for Debo, to revive his career in the playoffs. I'd rather go with the hand that's hot.
I can't imagine playing Debo. I couldn't imagine playing Debo for the last few weeks. I mean, I've had this conversation with some of the other guys about this, and it just doesn't make sense to me. He hasn't done anything. He's just a name from long lost time ago. So good luck. I wouldn't play him. Let's get this last one here from Finkel. He said he lost his flex to injury at full PPR. This is a good question for a lot of people. Who do you rank here from Marvin Harrison, Drake London, Kendre Miller?
So, little quick overview of my thoughts on these guys. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's got the quarterback that he's been playing with. He's the wide receiver 1 on the team, and he's got a good matchup. He's been up and down all season. Drake London, the best player out of this entire group for the fantasy season, but now you do get the rookie quarterback coming in on his first start, which makes me a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie, but, I do think I lean London. Kendre Miller, yeah, he may get volume. And as I said earlier in the show, I'm just worried that offense is going to be so bad that it's going to be hard to get him enough volume. And you're just going to be praying for some giant play, which could happen. Kendre Miller's a talented guy, but, I'm looking at risk reward, and I think that that's too risky.
Yeah. Kendre Miller is certainly a risky start. as far as when you think about the Saints this week, because clearly, we haven't seen Kendra Miller get a full workload yet at all. He's shown, flashes last week and stuff, but we don't know, can he carry the rock 10 plus times?
Exactly. Where did I cut off? Was I talking Kendre Miller?
You just started with the Kendra, so I kind of, as we continue the Mad Libs, I just kind of run on with your thoughts and try to nail them. Like I'm like half PPR fantasy tips right now.
Hey, yeah, there we go. No, it's beautiful. No, Kendre is just too risky for me. He's on a bad offense. There's no guarantee that he's going to get volume if that team, if New Orleans goes down. I'm going to go with the superstar Drake London. I'm going to just bet that Penix is able to get him the ball, and that's what I'm going to do there.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm with you. Let's talk Vince Wilfork's fan club. Thank you for being here, bud. Half PPR. You have to bench one. Sutton, Ramondre Stevenson, or Jawan Jennings. Who are we benching out of these three?
Half PPR changes it a little bit, but I think I'm pretty easily benching Stevenson there. He's on in my opinion, the least explosive offense. And I hate to say that with the Vince Wilfork fan club. It feels kind of messed up, but Sutton and Jennings have been good for the majority of the season when they are active, as well as specifically for Jennings playing in good weather. So I'm going to go with Sutton and Jennings.
Yeah, much more reliable, I'd say, as well as matchup wise. When you think about it, this is a New England team that's going to go. I'm looking at the schedule. They're going to Buffalo this week. It's not ideal, right? Like it's just not great for the Bills. And so I'm with you there. Let's see, Finkel, trying to run through these comments coming in quick. We appreciate you too. Thanks, Finkel. Shout out to you, Quincy. Appreciate it. Let's take Rocco's question. Would we run DJ Moore and JSN at flex, or would we someone out for Miller Dowdle, Patrick Taylor, 1 point PPR?
I'm going DJ Moore and JSN pretty easily there.
Mm-hmm.
This is that kind of situation where it's like, could Taylor, could Miller, could Dowdle go off? Yes, they could. They are all in situations where they, quote, could have good volume. But, I'm starting my studs. DJ Moore, I'm expecting them to be playing from behind in Chicago. He's their best wide receiver, and I would assume he's going to get targeted pretty often. And then Jason, he's looking like the new wide receiver one in Seattle, and I'm just going to stick with it. He's on a crazy year.
Yeah, Jason has been great. That's one of the preseason names that I was high on. I thought Jason would ascend to the top guy in Seattle. So you do love to see it. I would just throw out that Dowdle's pretty interesting. Dowdle's been good the last couple of weeks, but when you think PPR and full PPR, he's not a pass catching back. So that does give you that sort of concern there, but just food for thought. Okay, let's take a question here from Patrick. Would we start any of these guys over Herbert? And there's a number of them. Mahomes, Stroud, Jones, Cooper Rush, Geno. Not even sure if all these guys will play, let's be honest. But where do we rank, I guess? This is good overall quarterback kind of talk. Yeah. I guess why don't we start with Herbert? What are your thoughts on Herbert tonight? He's sort of injured again. Maybe we're not sure. It's not a great matchup against the top fantasy defense in the Denver. It wasn't good the first times they played. Just Herbert alone, is the confidence level there? Because for me, I was very confident in Herbert 3 weeks ago, but what we've seen lately has now put me back in that might want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, this one is a tough one. What I can say right off the bat is, I'm not trusting Cooper Rush. I'm not trusting Mac Jones, and I'm not trusting CJ Stroud in the fantasy playoffs. Geno, I'm going to count him out just because he's dealing with a new injury that kind of worries me a little bit, and he hasn't been, living up to the potential I thought he would as far as fantasy goes. I think this really comes down to, are you starting Mahomes or Herbert? And in this case, I think I'm just gambling with Justin Herbert and letting him roll out. Mahomes is banged up. He might not even play. I wouldn't want to be in a situation where Mahomes gets rolled out and then you're having to choose between those other 4 options that he laid out. I would just start Justin.
So I know exactly where we were going here. As again, if you're not clear, some of the internet has been some spotty, but Jared is going with the start Justin Herbert, and we're good.
Yes.
Those other guys, though, just, we talked, you mentioned all their names, and just the thought exercise when we think of the quarterback position, would you feel comfortable starting any of those other names?
I mean, it would really depend on what my options were. Like if I'm pretending that those are the only options I had, I mean, I would not be very comfortable starting any of them. The only thing that I guess is positive that comes to mind is that at least with Matt Jones and Cooper Rush, I would expect them to have to throw the ball a lot. They have had some random decent games recently, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear, and I would assume just about anyone would agree. If you're having to start them in the playoffs, you are not a happy camper. You're going to be feeling pretty nervous going into game day. Shout out to everybody on the stream. Thanks for joining. You guys are killing it. Sorry for my Wi-Fi issues that I've been having.
No need to apologize as I continue to play around. Hey, let's go back to a defensive question. Our guy Tyler here asked on. We talked about Broncos. They are top number one defense. They do play tonight. But would you choose to go with the Bills home against the Patriots as a defensive team play tonight or this week? Sorry.
No, you're good. I have no issue starting the Bills defense if if the Chargers just worry you, because I do think that obviously the Chargers are better than New England. That one's tough, honestly. I personally, I kind of live and die by start your studs. So if I have the Denver Broncos D, I'm going to start the Denver Broncos D. Really, the only team that would even remotely get me to actually think about benching the Broncos D would maybe be the Green Bay D against New Orleans this week, just because I think that is such a juicy matchup, and New Orleans is going to suck so bad. But no, I'm definitely. Although I do think the Bills are like probably a top 5 defense this week. I'm leaning Denver Broncos. I'm just starting them. They're the best defense in the league.
And I think that's the right way to play. Just a side note here, as we have now 600 plus people. I appreciate you guys. The thing is, when you talk about your start your studs guy, this is week 16. You've made it this far because of your studs.
Yep.
Why would you go anywhere else? It may not be the perfect matchup, but I think on the whole, when you play long enough, and this isn't like a 1 week thing, but this is like a 1 season thing, a 2 seasons, a general philosophy when you say start your studs and play the guys that have gotten you there, or the defense, which is number one. I just don't see the reason why, if you have the top defense 15 weeks throughout the season, you would not be playing them in week 16, which ends up being essentially the most valuable, important week of your season, unless you have some like crazy, awesome streaming option that you're so sure of. But like most of the time, you start your studs. There's a reason they're the best team this season from a fantasy standpoint. So I think that that's the biggest, you've talked the different names. We've talked, and you've mentioned the reasoning behind it, but I love the simplicity of start your studs.
Yep.
Sometimes we get a little bit too complex with all this. Simplify it and start your studs. If it says number 1 as the ranking next to the team or the defensive player, just insert them and just keep it moving. Don't make it too difficult. All right, so we got a little bit more time here. I'm going to go to the X machine here. I'm going to go to X. I'm going to find some questions and see if we can get some good answers. But anything you want to share about that you're thinking week 16 specifically related, not even player-wise, any kind of takes that you want to get out?
I mean, player-wise, I would say I feel like James Conner might be a guy that people are deciding on a flex play. It depends on the league, depends on the how large of a league it is. If you followed my page, you know that I am a huge James Conner fan. I was screaming at the rooftops during the draft season. Don't worry about him. Even if he gets injured, he's going to bring you the value that you need to be worth that draft pick. And the guy has not gotten hurt all year, and now he's got a juicy matchup. I think he's a top 3 running back play this week. I think he's going to absolutely go off. So if you have James Conner, you need to figure out a way to get him in your lineup. That is going to be my PS.
Okay, the PSA announcement from Jared is to get James Conner into your lineup. He has him as a top 3 running back this season, this week, actually. Week 16, he's loved James Conner. James Conner was excellent in week 15, put up 30-plus points in ESPN's fantasy scoring, and I saw it myself. But you have him as a top 3 guy in week 16, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think he's going to finish top 3. I think he's going to absolutely crush it. If he's on your roster, he needs to be starting. Really that simple.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And let's talk about another running back just in general. Look, if you replied to my post that was this morning about asking what your biggest fantasy football question is, I just want you guys to know I'm perusing this. There's a lot of similar names, so I'm just going to get some names out there for everyone because I'm not going to be able to go through every single one. But what about we go to Cleveland? We know they're changing quarterbacks, but how about running back? A lot of questions on can you start Jerome Ford and your thoughts.
I do think you can start Jerome Ford. I'm not going to pretend that he's like some smash start or anything like that. Shout out Dynasty Dad if he ever checks in here. That's his go-to smash start. Love that page. You should follow him if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football on Twitter. But yeah, no, I think Jerome Ford is going to get good volume. Last year, you may have forgotten, he got pretty good pass catching volume as well. So if you're in a PPR league, I think he gives you a little hidden upside that you might have forgotten about. But I do think that with the quarterback change, they are not pass heavy and they're going to kind of get back to the Cleveland Browns way of running the ball. I think the coaches are sick of seeing all the interceptions, which for fantasy, screw the Browns coaches. But I do think that they're going to run the ball.
Yeah. How about as we stick to the running back conversation, would you feel comfortable starting Tyjae Spears?
That one's very dependent on Tony Pollard's status. If Tony Pollard is active, I am not comfortable starting Tyjae Spears. I know, he is talented. He could put up some points, but my, risk tolerance in the fantasy football playoffs specifically is not high enough to throw a guy like Tyjae Spears in, unless maybe I'm in a 12, 14-man league where, it always depends on your roster, right? There might be situations where I'd say, yeah, go ahead and throw him in there. But in general, if I'm just talking about Tyjae and my thoughts on him, I would not feel super comfortable with him in my lineup. Very boomer bust, and you're just praying he breaks off a big play.
No question about it. I'm with you 100% here. Now, let's go to a quarterback question. It's a game, it's a matchup. It's in the NFC East. You think about the Commanders, you think about the Eagles. Now they face off two fantasy relevant quarterbacks. Who do you prefer to start this weekend in that game? Commanders, Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels.
That one's easy for me, and I know I'm a little late on this, but roll Tide. I'm going Jalen Hurts all day there. There's no chance that I am benching Jalen Hurts. It's an auto start for me every single time. There's not many quarterbacks that I would specifically say there's no chance I would bench them, but he is one of them.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts has been, money from a fantasy standpoint, no matter what. And look, we finally got the roll Tide out of you. I was wondering when we would get that. If you had 50 minutes, you win the wager. So congratulations on that. There you go. Okay, I'm going to scour a few more here. Thoughts on Chuba Hubbard this week?
Chuba Hubbard, I think he's going to bounce back. I'm really not that worried about Chuba Hubbard. He's been balling all year. It's normal for a player, especially a player on a bad offense, to have a bad week. So I'm not panicking on him. He's got the Arizona defense, which has been pretty decent. But at the end of the day, I'm just kind of starting the guy because I think he's going to get good volume like he has all season. And, I'm just not panicking over, small sample size of low numbers. I'm letting him ride if I've got him on my roster.
Okay, cool. Let's take a question on from our conversation just in the we've had here, a follow-up. Would you start Jerome Ford over Breece?
That one's kind of close for me. The only reason that it's somewhat close is because the Cincinnati defense, although they have,
So Cincinnati this week is going to play Cleveland, the Browns, just to give you guys an idea. And then the Jets are home against the Rams. I would say one as we wait for Jared's internet to return. Think about the weather. Monitor the weather, right? Because that's going to be that could have a big impact. Obviously, New York, we're in the winter, could affect windy conditions and so forth. So I was talking about the weather, Jared, and how that could affect the monitor, but I'll throw it back to you where you were in your thought process on Breece and Jerome Ford.
Yeah, no, basically, I don't think that this is a crazy question. It seems like a crazy question since it's got the name Breece Hall in it and Jerome Ford, and you're asking which one to start. One is clearly more talented than the other. I don't hate starting Jerome Ford just because of the Brees Hall knee injury. But if it's me, I'm just going to be real with you. This is another start your stud situation. I'm starting Brees Hall. I'm going to let it ride. I'm not banking on the backup Cleveland running back for the, Browns that just changed their quarterback to come in and save the day. He could, but it's just too risky for me. And I'd rather bank on Brees kind of, shutting everybody up and having a big game.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense when I listen to you, for sure. How about you mentioned you kind of like Bo Nix at some level this week?
Yeah.
Do you have any interest in Anthony Richardson?
I mean, are you saying would I start Bo Nix or Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I'd go Bo Nix there. Anthony Richardson does have really big upside, but Bo Nix has been one of the most consistent fantasy quarterbacks in the NFL. And he did put up 20 plus points against the Chargers last time they played this season. So I'm confidently starting Nix there.
How about one more quarterback? Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
What about Kyler Murray here? Like, let me throw out Kyler Murray versus Jaden Daniels.
Kyler Murray versus Jaden Daniels. I'm going Jaden Daniels. I know he's got the tough matchup and Kyler's got the, soft matchup. So I get, you're like, oh, are you sure about that? That's just a situation where I'm just trusting I'm trusting Jaden Daniels. I think he wasn't healthy last time, or he wasn't fully healthy last time they played the Eagles. So I think that hurt him. I think that he's been on, he's had a great season and I don't expect him to slow down. And I think he's going to be coming for some revenge versus defense. And I think it helps that this offense has already seen the defense as well. So, they might be a little bit more prepared than they were prior week. And Kyler, although, I am a big fan of Kyler and I was very much pushing him at the beginning of the season. He's been a disappointment. He's been very inconsistent, at least compared to what I would like to see from my star fantasy quarterback. I'm going JD there.
Yeah. The Kyler, I had bigger, higher aspirations for Kyler this season, but that will be for the offseason recap, and we'll look forward in the future. But he does have a plus matchup against Carolina.
Great.
What was that?
Great matchup.
Yeah, so it's like sometimes you got to hope, but yeah, it's been tough to watch the Kyler situation this season because it did feel like there's going to be a better year in store for him. But anyways, we've got a couple more minutes just trying to scour all the different ways that we find receive questions, which are all over. So just want to make sure to touch on the best ones possible. Any other questions you're seeing you specifically wanted to answer? I mean, there's so many that I can't pick everything, and we only have a few minutes, so I just want to make sure we get any thoughts across. How about just off the top of my head, I mean, kicker wise, do you have any thoughts on kicker? Like, kicker?
Yeah, I think I've got a little bit of a shocking or somewhat of a shocking take on the kicker because Cameron Dicker's been a really strong option for kicker for the entire season. And I'm actually a little bit worried starting him in the fantasy playoffs just because the Chargers have struggled to move the ball as fluidly as they did when J.K. Dobbins was active. And without J.K. Dobbins, I think they've lost a huge piece of that offense that really made the engine go. So for me, I think it's a little bit risky, especially versus the Denver defense. So, if there's another decent option, which I would assume on kicker waiver wires, there probably is another decent option. I would be leaning towards benching Dicker for someone else. As far as Lutz goes, I do like Lutz. I think he's good for 2 field.
All right, so it appears that Jared thinks that Dicker will be good for 2 field goal attempts. I am going to guess as opposed to made, but we'll find out shortly. Did you say, so we lost you at the point where you feel you're good for Cameron Dicker to get 2 field goal attempts or made?
So Dicker, I am not confident in. I do not think. I think he's going to have trouble getting into field goal position. And if Denver keeps playing well like they have, I don't think the Chargers are going to be in a position where they can kick field goals. So I'm a little worried about Dicker. With Lutz, I think he I think you can count on 2 field goals from him. I always like looking at those bets that you can place where it's like, over under 1.5 field goals, I would smash that on Lutz. I think that he's a safe fantasy kicker for this week.
All right, cool. I like it. There you go. Well, let's solid. And those are the kickers in tonight's Thursday night game. So of course, if you're looking at your lineup or you're ready to set it and you're paying attention here, make sure that your lineup is good to go for tonight's game. I mean, they kick off in just a couple of hours here on the Thursday night football. Obviously, it is Denver and the Los Angeles Chargers playoff implications on the line in real football, playoff implications on the line in the fantasy playoffs. All right, I think that's good. I think we did it. This is week 16, man. Fantasy football playoff preview. We did it week 15. We got through it for week 16. A little bit connection-wise, might have left a little to be desired, but if you listen, I'm sure you learned a lot. We appreciate everyone from tapping in. Jared, of course, thank you. Make sure to follow myself and Jared. Any final thoughts, my guy?
Nah, man, thanks for having me. Always appreciate letting me come on the stream and have some fun answering some fantasy questions. For anybody listening, we're going to try and do this, more on a regular basis where we can get on and answer some questions. I always enjoy doing it. As I'm sure you guys know, Michael crushes it. He's great at what he does, and I love kind of pairing up with him and having some fun. So yeah, follow me on PPR Fantasy Tips on Twitter, and ask questions, follow the page, retweet the posts. I appreciate all the support you guys show me. I'm going to keep pumping out the content, and we'll talk again soon.
We will. And I echo everything that Jared said. One of my favorite follows. So glad to be able to do this. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again. Get you set up for your championship matchups. If you make it, whoever you are playing this week, good luck in all your fantasy matchups. Thank you, Jared. And thanks to everyone that followed and watched 740 plus. That's awesome. We will see you on the other side of semifinal matchups next week. Have a good one, everyone.